నతియింతకు మున్నే నతియింతకు మున్నే నా సామి మధురా రామామృతమును జూరాలదకున్నే యతివ యంతకు మున్నే హరి విప్పుటరముపై హరి విప్పుటరముపై గుబ్బల కసి రమణీయంతకు మున్నే రమణీయంతకు మున్నే రమను కౌగింత జేరి పలుకకున్నే పారావతధ్వముల్ పలుకకున్నే. Hello everyone. Welcome to Off-Roading, and thank you Allah for doing this event and allowing us to share the stories of many wonderful women, unheard and rarely sung, rarely discussed in our daily lives. Thank you for joining in, everybody. I started my performance with a poem written by Muddu Pallavi. And let me tell you something about Muddu Pallavi. Muddu Pallavi was from the 18th century, and she wrote a work called Radhika Santvanam. And Radhika Santvanam was hailed by the king and the whole kingdom as one of the gems of Telugu literature. This song that I sang, the poem that I sang, is in Telugu. And in the 18th century, she was hailed as one of the most important writers by the king Maharaja Pratap Singh in his darbar. And Radhika Santvanam is about Radhika's Santvanam. The piece is written through the perspective of Radhika, about her desires and how she asks Krishna to, fulfill her desires. What is strange is that Radhika Santvanam by Muthu Palani was celebrated during her time. 100 years later, in the 19th century, it was republished by Telugu scholars, Venkatanarasu and Veerasalingam, scholars like that. And when they republished it, they also added an editorial note. They edited a lot of it. They added an editorial note saying, this Muthu Palani, who claims to be an expert, is, she's an adulteress. And what she has done with her work is indecent. And another artist called Bangalore Nagaratnama, who was also a classical musician, a poet, a dancer, she stood against this criticism of Muthu Palani's work by Veerasalingam and Venkatanarasu. She republished Radhika Santwanam again, and this time republished it unedited. And she argued with Venkatanarasu and Veerasalingam and all other such scholars that they have recommended similar textbooks written by men, similar works written by men to the textbooks of universities. And just because this work has been written by a woman, why is it considered wrong or indecent? And there was a big public debate, and the book was banned. And this book, Radhika Santwanam, this work is the first work to be banned under the on grounds of obscenity. And there was a big debate, and Bangalore Nagaratnama was also criticized by these scholars. These scholars, let me tell you who they were. They were the leaders of the social reform movement of Andhra Pradesh. They did not approve of this. And they also said, well, what can you say? One prostitute is standing up for another. Bangalore Nagaratnama was a Devadasi, and this was held against her. And the book was banned. And the ban was revoked much later, after India gained independence. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about Bangalore Nagaratnama and then sing another song maybe. Bangalore Nagaratnama, this story I have to tell on Alap Concepts page. If you know the Tyagaraja Aradhane, and if you've attended the Tyagaraja Aradhane in Tiruvayur, you know how important it is. How everybody who is, anybody in Carnatic music goes and sings at the Aradhane, celebrating Saint Tyagaraja, of course. For the longest time, women were not allowed to sing with men in the Aradhane. They were not allowed to share the stage. They were not allowed to sit next to men. And Bangalore Nagaratnama, being quite an influential person, a musician and a dancer and a poet, she fought against this, and she demanded that men and women should sit together and perform at the Aradhane. And she fought this for 20 years. For 20 years she struggled, fought, and finally they said, okay, we will allow that to happen. And if you now see the Tyagaraja Aradhane, it gives you so much joy because you see all artists sitting next to each other with no hierarchy and performing and paying their respects to Tyagaraja. But that battle was fought for women by Bangalore Nagaratnamma, who fought another battle for Muddu Palani and her work, Radhika Santwanam. That is the story of these two extremely courageous and brave and creative women. And we have a lot to thank them for. I want to sing for you a vachana which was written in the 12th century, and it is written by Lingamma. And as you know, the Vachana movement in Karnataka was one of the most important movements that happened in this land. It was against the caste system. It was a very progressive movement where people from all walks of life joined the movement, and they wrote poetry. And it was led by Basavanna, but there were many women who also wrote in this period. And the most important voice that you hear, a woman's voice from that period, is Akka Mahadevi. But there are many other women, Sharanes as you can call them, who also contributed a lot to that period and that literature. So I want to sing one song from one vachana from that period, written by Lingamma, where she says, she's talking about the door sill. The light that the lamp sheds, the lamp that is on the door sill, the light that it sheds falls both outside and inside the house. And the Sharana also should be able to see outside and inside his body. And when he does that, he becomes one with his Ishtalinga. Re ma pa re sa ma pa ni dha ni sa ma pa re 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 pa ma pa ni dha ni sa re ni sa ni ma pa ni dha ni sa re sa ni ma pa ni dha ni sa ni pa ma pa ni ma pa ga ma re sa re re pa ma ni dha ni sa ni sa re re sa ni ma pa ni dha ni ne pa ga ga ma re 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 pa ma pa ni dha ni sa ni pa. ಹೊಸ್ತಿಲೊಳಗೆ ಇರಿಸಿದ ಜ್ಯೋತಿಯಂತೆ ಹೊಸ್ತಿಲೊಳಗೆ ಇರಿಸಿದ ಜ್ಯೋತಿಯಂತೆ ಒಳಗೆ ನೋಡುವನು ತಾನೆ ಹೊರಗೆ ನೋಡುವನು ತಾನೆ ಒಳಗೆ ನೋಡುವನು ತಾನೆ ಹೊರಗೆ ನೋಡುವನು ತಾನೆ, ಅರಿದೆನೆಂಬುವನು ತಾನೆ, ಅರಿಯನೆಂಬುವನು ತಾನೆ, ಅರಿದೆನೆಂಬುವನು ತಾನೆ, ಅರಿಯನೆಂಬುವನು ತಾನೆ, ಕಂಡೆನೆಂಬುವನು ತಾನೆ, ಕಾಣೆನೆಂಬುವನು ತಾನೆ, ಕಂಡೆನೆಂಬುವನು ತಾನೆ, ಕಾಣೆನೆಂಬುವನು ತಾನೆ. ದೃಷ್ಟ ದೃಕ್ಕು ಧೃಮ್ಮವೆಂಬ ತ್ರಿಪುಟ ಭೇದವ ಮೀರಿ, ದೃಷ್ಟ ದೃಕ್ಕು ದೃಶ್ಯವೆಂಬ ತ್ರಿಪುಟ ಭೇದವ ಮೀರಿ, ಆನಂದ ಆನಂದದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಡುವ ಶರಣ, ಆನಂದದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಡುವ ಶರಣ, ಆನಂದದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಡುವ ಶರಣ, ಆಡುವ ಶರಣ. I want to tell you about a very surprising and a shocking story that I very recently came to know about. This is not about a specific woman, but this is about how the story kind of illustrates why we need to talk about women and why we need to keep fighting this battle, and it's still not over. I recently realized and came to know that one of the most celebrated plays in the world, called Waiting for Godot. If you know theatre, you know this play. Waiting for Godot is one of the most important plays in the history of theatre. It is an absurd play. It was written after the war, after the World War, and Samuel Beckett won the Nobel for specifically this, but also his body of work. But this one was a very important work, which was recognized when he won the Nobel. You would be surprised by this story that I'm going to tell you. Apparently, when Beckett wrote Waiting for Godot, if you don't know the play, it is about two men, and it is about an existential condition that, human beings have, and they are waiting for Godot. The waiting is a continuous act, and they can't. It doesn't end when the play ends. The play was performed by a women's theatre group, and Beckett sued them. He filed a case against them, saying women can't perform this play. Then they lost, of course, the case, and they were not allowed to perform it. And Beckett died the year after that, after this court case happened. And the whole Beckett's works was then handed over, the copyrights of all his works were handed over to his family, which controlled his estate. Now, the thing about people controlling somebody's works, the estate, is that probably if Beckett had lived longer, he might have changed his mind. But what he had said was his decision before his death will continue forever to be the thought that he had about this issue. You will be surprised that women have not been allowed to perform Waiting for Godot, this play. And when somebody asked him, why can't women perform this play? He said, women don't have prostrate. And the story behind that is one of the characters has, a kind of a burning prostate or a burning penis, I guess. And he has to urinate a lot of the times. He keeps exiting to urinate. That specificity was the reason Beckett said no. Women can't perform Waiting for Godot. Well, we should tell Beckett that for centuries, years, men have performed women's roles on stage in possibly every culture. Do men have boobs? Do men have vaginas? One of the greatest playwrights, I was so disappointed to, when I came to know about this. But everybody has their own flaws, their own personal demons that they are battling. And I only wish Beckett had lived longer to see that that argument is quite a flimsy one when it comes to allowing women to be allowing and not, bracketing this play into just a male category. I hope that changes sometime, but until 2059, at least legally, women cannot perform Waiting for Godot, because men can perform women's roles, but women can't perform this specific play. I thought I had to share that with all of you, since we are talking about off-roading and how it is important to talk about women and, the struggle and the fight for our rights, for equality. I want to tell you another story, and not a story. I want to introduce another poet to you and sing one of her songs. Again from the Vachana movement. This poetess is Sule Sankava, who was a sex worker, and she wrote about life, but through the eyes of her trade, through using her trade as the medium to discover the world. And in the Vachana movement, almost everybody who wrote were laborers, workers, cobblers, potters, boatmen, sweepers, you name it, and every possible profession and work laborer was has contributed to this literature. And Sule Sankava was one of them, and she wrote one of these poems that I'm going to sing for you, where she says, I cannot sleep with, once I have slept with a person of a certain class, I'm not allowed to sleep below that. If I do that, then they will drag me by my hair and skin me alive. And oh Lord, and her personal Lord is Nirlajeshwara, which means Shiva, the Shiva who is uninhibited. And she tells him that, but with you, I know you will understand this, but I cannot do this in my society. And here is Sule Sankava for you. కొల్లువరయ్యా ವ್ರತಹೀನ ನರೆದು ಬೆರೆದೆಡೆ ಕಾದ ಕತ್ತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೈ ಕಿವಿ ಮೂಗು ಕೊಯ್ವರಯ್ಯ ಒಲ್ಲೆ ನೊಲ್ಲೆ ಬಲ್ಲೆ ನಾಗಿ ಒಲ್ಲೆ ನೊಲ್ಲೆ ಬಲ್ಲೆ ನಾಗಿ ನಿಮ್ಮಾಣೆ ನಿರ್ಲಜ್ಜೇಶ್ವರ 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 ಆ yes thank you. I think I've run out of time. There are many stories that we can keep sharing with each other, but this is the time I have today, and hopefully we will continue on this journey of discovering unheard, unsung women and sing their songs, tell their stories, try to gather more perspectives into our histories, and try and make it a more inclusive world for everybody. Thank you everybody for joining. This is the first time I'm doing an Insta live, so I hope this was live was on. Okay, there are so many of you who have joined. Thank you. Should I close the session? Wow. Thank you, Radhika. Oh, I see. Thank you, Akhila. Yes. Thank you so much. Bindu, yay. Okay, all my sisters are here. Thank you so much. And thank you, Akhila, for doing this. And thank you for bringing us all together. And thank you, Mahi. Thank you, Mahi. Thank you, Akhila. And yeah, I ask you all to please join Alap Concepts every evening by 9. There are some of fabulous artists who will be, Sumana, thank you, who will be performing. Bindu is also going to be singing. I think Radhika is also going to be singing. So have a great festival and keep looking, keep searching. Thank you. Oops, I don't know how to switch it off. Do I just log out? Somebody tell me how to switch off the live? Should I just close the window? Yes, thank you.